Hello and welcome to another video from EarnPED.com. I'm StevieB, happy to have you all with us today. Today I came to stand in front of Never Die Bank at Port Atlantis because I don't necessarily have something interesting that you guys are going to be seeing on screen. I'm actually loaded down with thousands and thousands of kilograms of loot that I've got to go through because I'm redoing my inventory, so it's very hard for me to even move at the moment. But this bank is kind of at the center of what the subject is going to be for today. It's very important and something I think a lot of people are A, misunderstanding, but B, rightfully upset about. And that is the question of, is your money safe in Entropia universe in 2022 and moving forward? So a few days ago I shot this video. I actually deleted it right before I was going to publish it because I wanted to take some time to process everything, and after I processed it, the information in the video I previously shot was just not accurate. So let me explain what happened and why this subject has come up and what my revised thoughts of it are. A few days ago, Mindark announced on its Facebook page that its board of directors has decided that due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there will be no new Russian player accounts created moving forward for Entropia Universe. Now, those Russian players who have already had an account and already been playing will be allowed to continue playing. However, they will no longer be able to deposit or withdraw funds. Now, the initial response that I had was the same initial response that most people had. This is absolutely horrifying because this is a real cash economy game. Let's face it, I've told this directly to the Next Island development team before, and they wanted to argue the point with me. Let's face it, guys, this game sucks. As far as a game goes, this is a horrible game. If I wanted to play a good game, I'd go buy a PlayStation 5. This is not necessarily a good game. What makes this game great is the real cash economy. The fact that this has been one of the very few games with a real cash economy that has actually worked, that has actually stood the test of time. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary, I believe, next year of this video game. That is a very long time. Probably the first and still the best is Entropia Universe, in my personal opinion. I would have never played an MMORPG. I would have never played WoW. I would have never played Eve or Second Life. However, this one hooked me, and it's the only MMO I've ever played. I could not see doing this kind of thing, playing this type of a game, without the real cash economy aspect. And what is horrifying is that in the announcement Mindark made, what they're saying is there is a player base greater than 0. So there is at least one and or more players that now will not be able to withdraw the money that they've invested because of where they live. That is absolutely horrifying. The whole premise of this game is that you're able to deposit and withdraw. Now, ideally, from the player base, the whole hook, the whole shtick is that when you deposit, you want to make more and then withdraw more than you put in. Now, does that really happen? Not for a lot of people, not for the majority of players, but there are those lucky few that it does happen for. But that is what draws us to this game. And this sets very, very bad precedent because, as people were saying online, and I totally agree with that, if Mindark's board can get together and decide that they don't like what a real-life country does, and then they can just say, we're no longer going to pay withdrawals to any players in that country, that is horrifying. Because the gamers sitting here playing Entropia Universe, they're not people at the highest levels of the Kremlin. They're not people calling the shots. They're not people that are making money off this invasion. They're not super, super rich billionaire oligarchs. They're just people sitting at home, you know, going to work, trying to feed their family, who enjoyed the game, enjoy having this as their hobby, their outlet, a way for them to maybe have an extra side hustle and have some kind of a community group that they don't have in real life. Most of my friends are in this game, and that's not because I don't have friends in real life or I'm an antisocial person, but I find that the people that I'm attracted to in this game are more honest and less likely to try and take advantage of me than people in real life. I consider a friend anybody I can show up at midnight and leave my girl, my wallet, and my truck with, not tell them why, and leave. And I might be back in a week, I might be back in a year, might be back in a decade, and when I get back, my girl, my wallet, and my truck are all going to be exactly the same as they were the night I left them. And in real life, there's maybe one person that I consider to come to that standard in game, there's at least 3. So that is one of the reasons that it attracted me to this game so much. And like I said, it's horrifying, because what if tomorrow Mindark wakes up and decides that they don't like the fact that Justin Trudeau up in Canada seized the bank accounts of truckers who are trying to protest, so there's no Canadian players that can withdraw. Or he decides tomorrow that he doesn't like the United States policies on the Middle East, so no U.S. players can withdraw. That would be exceedingly horrifying, right? So obviously that is what most of us were thinking. That was kind of our thought process, and that was a large part of the very first video that I shot. And then I got to thinking about it before I published the video. Let's back up a little bit here, and let's think about a few things. First of all, this game only has about 8,000 to 10,000 daily active users worldwide. Now, I don't know what the actual number of players is, like the total player base, but the number I hear get thrown around a lot is about 8,000 to 10,000 active daily users. That is not a huge amount by any stretch of the imagination. That number, if we look at just the number of Russian daily active players, cannot be huge. We can't be in the thousands. Most of the trade channels are going to be in English. There are a few Russian societies like made in the USSR, but it doesn't seem to be the hugest of player bases, right? So this got me to thinking, and I don't know the exact legal structures over in Sweden. I'm very familiar with most of the legal structures in the United States and the different things that you would use for different purposes and the regulatory restrictions that come with them. Not so much in Sweden. So what I do know is that the rumor is, years ago, Mindark tried to get a banking license. I don't know if that was ever successful, and even if they were successful in getting it, it does not mean they ever used it. What does a bank actually do? A bank takes in deposits, which it does not own. It does not have legal right to say that is my money. But it takes in those deposits, and then it generates loans in the form of mortgages or auto loans or business loans. And it makes its money off of the interest that is brought in off those loans, and it makes money off of originating those loans and selling them off. Does this sound anything like what Mindark does? No, not even close. All that Mindark does is take the money in, hold on to it, and then spit it back out. There's no loans, there's no mortgages. It's not like they've got a car lot in Sweden that is backed by the money in the game. It's not like they've got an actual physical bank in Sweden where the money flows into the game and then they're loaning that money out in mortgages in Sweden. So if they do have a banking license, it doesn't seem like they've ever really used it. In fact, I would think the only reason that they would even get a banking license is if they considered every single player an investor, because most of your business structures around the world have different limits and regulations as to how many investors a particular business can have and the way those investors and their funds must be treated. So I could have seen that use for a banking license. I am pretty sure they acquired one at one point. Honestly, I just don't think they ever used it. Even the banks in game are not truly banks. The quote-unquote banks, like Bank Never Die right in front of me, it functions much more like a pawn shop than it does as a bank, where you go in, you give an item as collateral, you were given a certain amount of PED, you have a certain amount of days to pay a horrendous interest rate, and if you do, you get your item back. If you don't, then the bank owner, quote-unquote, keeps the money. These banking licenses in game were very, very expensive. I believe they were over $100,000 a piece, and there was 5 of them. And honestly, it is probably one of the last estate items in game that I would ever buy, simply for the fact of nobody really uses it. The economy never really took off to the point where you can use these in-game banks and conceivably ever get ahead. I have looked at the interest rates and the rates of collateralization, and wow, you'd be just better off not playing for a few days than to use these in-game banks, which is why they're such a non-aspect of the economy. That's why nobody ever talks about them. So why get the banking license at all? Well, they really have gotten themselves kind of in a jam, and it's a catch-22. But let's circle back to the first premise, and then we'll get to premises 2 and 3. So why have we ended up with this situation where Mindark is able to say, we're no longer going to be paying withdrawals, and on top of that, we're not going to let Russian players deposit So that means that as a Russian OG player, you better be self-sustaining. You better be already profitable in game, because you're not going to be able to put any more money in. You better have a pretty good social network, because that's the only way you're going to get money in and out, is if you know somebody in game who's willing to let you send them money in real life and then put it in game for you and give it back to you, or that you can send money to in game and they can withdraw and then bring it back to you in real life. It's a real big disaster. So why would Mindark do this? I got to thinking about it. I don't believe Mindark's board sat down and said, you know, we feel we have a moral obligation to screw over these gamers from Russia who have supported us and who have trusted us with this money and put this faith in us, just because the leader of their government invaded a different country. We think we're going to screw them over. I don't think that's what happened, even though that's the way they phrased it in their release. I think what happened is Mindark is scared to death to be caught dead sending money into Russia right now. With all the sanctions out of the European Union on Russia, with all the sanctions out of the United States on Russia, with all the different things that are being levied against the Russian government, the oligarchs, the financial system, I think right now Mindark would be horrified to have to pay a withdrawal to a Russian player, for fear that they're going to have to go down to their local bank in the European Union and say, yeah, we need to send some money to Russia. From our company, by the way, not from me personally, from our company, directly to a Russian citizen. I think they are scared to death of that happening. I think they are horrified that in doing so, they would put themselves in a situation where their local government, the Swedish government, or even the European Union governments, could come in and start sanctioning them, could seize bank accounts of Mindark, not just of the players, of Mindark, and possibly even the game. And I think that fear isn't totally unjustified. I think where they screwed up is where in the release they said, well, our board sat down and we decided that we're no longer going to pay withdrawals to Russian players. And, you know, it's because of a moral obligation. I think that's where they screwed up. They took a legitimate fear and a legitimate step to protect the game and the larger player base because of what's going on in the real world, and they tried to frame it as this politically correct, holier than thou. We just feel that this is morally wrong. You don't get a vote on morally right and wrong. You don't get a vote on what's right and wrong in the real world. You gave up the real world when you created your own universe called Entropia, okay? You don't get to make decisions in-game because of what you feel is right and wrong with world governments in the real world. But in trying to phrase it that way, I think it scared the crap out of a lot of people, me included, because if they can do it to Russian players, what's to keep them from doing it to European Union players or British players or American players or Canadian players? There's nothing to stop that, right? So I think what they should have done is they should have just said, we're doing it because of all the sanctions, because we don't want to be caught dead sending money into Russia, and I think everybody would have understood that. And I think they should have just left the political goodwill out of it and not tried to make themselves look like a social justice warrior. However, they did, and that has shot them in the foot terribly, terribly bad. Now, moving on from that, do I think this is going to be a permanent thing? They have said indefinitely, but indefinitely is a very long time, especially when you're talking about a game that most of us intend to see around 100 years from now. So I do think at some point down the road, after this is all said and done, after, you know, this whole thing blows over, maybe 5-10 years from now, things will be different. I do not believe that Mindark will deliberately want to cut themselves off from the entirety of the Russian population. I think they're being forced into that because they don't want to be caught dead sending the money. Now, that being said, that raises the question of is your money safe in Entropia? And this is a catch-22 that Mindark has put themselves in. Mindark has said repeatedly they want big depo players. They want players who are willing to deposit, you know, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 or more. And back when the game first started, they were good at attracting those kind of players. They created Club Never Die, which was new content that was helpful for the game and helpful to the in-game economy. And it created big demand for big money. They created Crystal Palace, which was new content that had huge implications for the game and for the in-game economy, and it attracted big money. It stayed that way. Crystal Palace was very unique in a lot of respects, which is why whenever they divvied it up into share form about a year and a half ago, it demanded big money again, because of the fact that it is such a big part of the game, and it does have such implications for the in-game economy and for the players. But they stopped doing that. They stopped creating new content that was really going to be profitable if somebody was willing to spend a lot of money on it. So that is problem number one that they've had in attracting big money. Problem number two is, how are you going to attract big money if you're sitting there putting out a press release saying that our board feels what this government did is morally objectionable, so we're not going to let players in that country withdraw anymore? Well, even if you lift that tomorrow and you say that Russian players can withdraw all they want, do you think there's going to be any Russian oligarchs rushing to throw hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars at you? No, because last week you said that Russian players can't withdraw, and that's pretty much indefinite. Do you think that there's going to be American or Canadian or European Union players rushing to throw huge amounts of money at you? No, because now what you've told them is that because you want to be a social justice warrior, if you don't like something their government does, you can refuse to pay their withdrawal. So, yeah, you want their big money. You want them to send it to you. Oh, yeah, you need it, right? But then at the same time, you're going to put out this social justice warrior statement that you can just arbitrarily decide who you pay and who you don't. You should have put it to what it really was. Look, we can't pay withdrawals to Russia right now because of all the sanctions in the European Union and coming from the U.S. It's not that we don't want to. We want to pay every withdrawal to every player because that is what we are here for. However, we cannot be caught dead sending money. Our bank physically will not send it. We have no way to get it to you because of the restrictions that have been put on us by our government, by your real world government, by my real world government. If they left the social justice warrior part out, they wouldn't have shot themselves in the foot. But because they went the social justice warrior route, that it was something they found morally reprehensible, so they're going to do this. Well, how are you going to attract big money from anywhere else? Would I make the investment that I made looking at that kind of social justice warrior language? Absolutely not. Because what if tomorrow you just don't happen to like one of the policies that my president's administration has, and you decide you're not going to pay any American withdrawals? The whole point of this game is deposit and withdrawal. So I think that generally speaking, most of you who are $20, $30, $40, $50, $60 a month players, it's a hobby. That's entertainment money, right? I'm going to go see the Batman in the morning with my father. We're not going to get that money back, but we don't expect to. We're just going to be together and to watch the movie because this is something we've done with every Batman movie since 1989. So if that's how you play Entropia, if you deposit on a monthly or semi-monthly or quarterly basis because this is your hobby and you're talking non-life-changing amounts of money, then yeah, it's fairly safe. Would I advise anybody to put in the big, massive kinds of money that Mindark always says that they want? No. If Mindark is going to say that they're not going to send a withdrawal to anybody, I don't care where they are, I don't care where they live, I don't care what their government does, and they want to say it's because a social justice warrior, we don't agree with what their government does, I'm going to be the first person to say, do not send in 4, 5, 6 digits worth of money to this company, because they don't have that right. They don't get a moral vote. Now, if they take away the social justice warrior stance and say it's because of the restrictions placed on us by our bank, by our government, by these sanctions, different story. Okay? Because at that point, it is what it is. But they need to drop the act that they're doing this for any kind of moral obligation or from any kind of a moral standpoint and just admit it is what it is. They don't want to be caught dead sending the money, and even if they were willing to send the money, which they probably are, they don't have a way to get it to you. They don't have a way to get it there. And they don't have a way to do it without getting their hands dirty, which is a problem for them. So generally speaking, is the money safe? Yes. Would I advise anybody to deposit $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 or more? Absolutely not. Until Mindark stops with the whole social justice warrior movement. Now, if they want to admit that that wasn't it at all, they just physically cannot get it there, or it's because of the limits that have been imposed on them by their government, that's fine. Now, back to the banking theory, since we've covered premises 1 and 2, I think that Mindark could potentially have a problem later on down the road. And the reason I think that is Mindark is not stupid enough to say, well, we're just going to stop paying withdrawals to this country or that country unless they're forced to. The game isn't big enough to survive. They want to attract big money, and this is doing the opposite of it, right? But I think a bigger problem that Mindark has, and probably one reason they've never used a banking license to begin with, is they think they have found a very easy way around needing a banking license. Players are not considered investors. When you deposit money into your account, what you're really doing is just sending Mindark money. If you look in the terms of use that they have that pops up every time you try and load the game, if you actually read through it, what it says is that everything belongs to Mindark. That they are not a bank, that your avatar belongs to Mindark, your skills belong to Mindark, your items belong to Mindark, your weapons belong to Mindark, your armor, your ships, everything in-game belongs to Mindark, including your PED. So they really thank you for your deposit. You can go away now, is what the terms of use says. So Mindark's legal position would always be, no, we're not a bank. It's not that people send us money and we're a fiduciary and we just hold it for them. And no, all these items in game do not belong to them, and we're just a fiduciary that makes sure they're in the right place at the right time. Actually, everything, totally, all of it belongs to us. Now, it's great that you can put that in your legal statement, in your terms of use down, in the bottom somewhere in little bitty letters, and it's a good argument that you can make in court. However, let's look at how you run the day-to-day operations of your company. What do you call it when somebody sends you money? You don't call it a purchase. You call it a deposit. You've always called it a deposit, never a purchase. What do you call it when somebody receives money back from you? You call it a withdrawal. You don't call it a receipt or a return or an exchange. You call it a withdrawal. What has your stick always been with the game? What's your advertising always been? The real cash economy game where you can deposit and withdraw real money. So you can have it in your terms of use all day long that everything under the world belongs to Mindark. In reality, you have never treated it that way. That would be like me opening a business that says gas station, and I don't sell gas. You walk in and the only thing I have is pizza. Nothing else, just pizza. And all I sell is pizza, and all I deal in is pizza. Am I a gas station? No, I'm a pizza parlor. I can have gas station on the side of the building all I want. That does not make it a gas station. What makes it a gas station is the fact that you sell gas and snacks and staples. So if I say gas station, but in reality you walk in and all I have is pizza everywhere and no gas and no snacks and no staples, then I'm not a gas station, I'm a pizza parlor, right? And that's essentially the catch-22 Mindark has put themselves in. They want the best of both worlds. They want to be a real cash economy where they deposit and withdraw real money for players, and players have these accounts and have these in-game items that belong to them and skills that belong to them, but they want the legal benefits of saying, no, these people aren't investors, no, we're not a fiduciary, no, we don't take deposits and pay withdrawals, no, we're just a video game where they send us money and occasionally we give them a return. We own everything. Well, that's not going to fly. You ever end up in a situation where Mindark decides they're going to say, we're not going to pay all the American players, or we're not going to pay the Planet partners, or we're not going to pay all the European players? You watch. This wouldn't last 2 seconds in court. I don't have a law degree, and I just cut through their defenses. So if I can do it in about 2 seconds flat, what do you think the best legal team that money can buy could do to Mindark? It's a lot. Trust me. I've looked into it. So, that being said, I think they've put themselves in a really, really bad position when they did not need to put themselves in a really, really bad position. I think what they should have done is just came out and said, look, we cannot be caught dead sending the money because of all the sanctions that are currently in place that have recently been put in place. It is impossible for us to any longer pay withdrawals to players in Russia. So the right thing for us to do is to be sure that no new Russian accounts are created. That would be justifiable, that would be understandable, that would be responsible. And those Russian players who did already have an account that are still able to play, they would just have to find a workaround. Somebody they can send the PED to in-game and get it out in real life, or vice versa, and everybody would have understood. But because they went the social justice warrior route, they've scared a lot of people, and they've set a very bad precedent. Because now, if they decide they don't like something another country does, what's to stop them from doing the same thing? Well, survival, and the fact that they want to keep their golden goose running. However, they should have left the social justice stance out of it, because it would have just done away with the whole problem to begin with. Everybody would have understood. So do I think Mindark is deliberately trying to shoot themselves in the foot? No. I think they want those big deposits. I think they want to keep things going as it has been for almost 20 years now. And I think they want to not make as many waves as possible. I think that the board thought that announcing it this way would end up with a lot of goodwill. And instead, all it's done is the opposite. It's created a lot of blowback, scared a lot of people, and there was a lot of people that might have been willing to put in a withdrawal, or put in a deposit, possibly even a big deposit, that have decided that they don't want to do that now, because now they're scared that tomorrow Mindark might not like something their government does. So I think the announcement itself, while at its very basic level, makes a lot of sense. I think the way they announced it and the social justice spin they tried to put on it has totally blown back and bitten them in the face. I think you guys now also understand some of the reasons for some of the legalese, some of the reasons they may have a banking license but not use it. If they did use their banking license, then they would not be able to have it in their terms of use that they own everything. They would indeed be a fiduciary, where every dollar you spent, every in-game item belonged to you, not them. That would require them to get into the middle of every transaction that's disputed of, hey, I loaned this person my item, they never returned it. They would have a fiduciary responsibility to get in the middle of that and straighten it out. But what happens when you have something happen where you loan somebody a 1,000 PED weapon, or a 10,000 PED weapon, or a 100,000 PED weapon, with no collateral because stupid move, they run off with it, they sell it off, that person sells it off, that would create a giant fiduciary mess, right? So there's a reason I don't think they've ever used the banking license. There's a reason I think they tried to put the legalese in. Do I think the legalese would ever stand up in a court of law? No, not in the United States, not in the European Union, absolutely not. And because they're running a pizza parlor with a sign out front that says gas station. Actually, what they're doing is running a bank with a sign out front that says video game. That's what they're doing. They do have a fiduciary responsibility. They're able to skirt it to a large extent. They do have a fiduciary responsibility. They're able to just kind of turn a blind eye to it to a very, very large extent. These are not payments we're sending in for a purchase and refunds we're getting. These are indeed deposits. They are indeed withdrawals. We do indeed own the things in the game. They can make the argument all day long, well, we put, a couple of sentences in our terms of use. The problem is you continue to run a business that takes deposits and takes withdrawals. Ceteris paribus, you now have a fiduciary responsibility. Sorry about your bad luck. So, that being said, I hope you guys kind of understand a little bit more about why they made the announcement regarding Russian players that they did. I hope you understand the reason they were probably forced into this position and how they probably did not want to be forced into that position. Their big mistake was trying to add the social justice warrior spin. Their big mistake was not just calling it what it is. We don't want to be caught dead sending money into Russia. Because of the restrictions placed on our government, because of the restrictions placed on your government, we cannot send you the money. We could have the money right here, waving it around, throwing it around the room all day. We have no way to physically get it to you. Now, that doesn't mean you still can't send it to somebody else in game. They withdraw it, they send it to you through some means. But Mindark should have just said, we can't get it there because of our government and your government. So because of that, until this is resolved, no new players out of Russia. They should have left it at that. They wanted some goodwill. They wanted to get the whole, slow clap, good for you, social justice warrior. You're fighting Putin and making the right moral decision. They wanted that pat on the back, and all it's done is shoot him in the foot. Because now everybody's worrying, can this happen to me tomorrow? Why would I send you a large deposit if this could happen because you don't like my government tomorrow? They should have left that entire spin completely out of it. They are donating $50,000 plus 10% of their proceeds, I believe, during Mayhem to some kind of a charity or something in Russia. That's great. That doesn't help the guy who wanted to withdraw 2,000 PED. They can no longer withdraw 2,000 PED. If anything, that's just a slap in the face to him and the rest of the player base. If you want to donate to a charity, do it on your dime. Don't do it with the money you just seized from those Russian players who had nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. You literally just told a stay-at-home dad or a father of 5 who uses this as his escape, hey, we know you've put several thousand US dollars into this game, and that's a huge amount of money for you. Maybe you were planning to get that money out at some point to get a new car or to help send your kids to college. You can't do that anymore, but we're going to donate, $50,000 to some charity over here. I think that's just the ultimate slap in the face, not just to the Russian players, to all of the players. I think it was a huge mistake on their part. I don't know if they're doing it for a tax write-off. I don't know why they're doing it. But I think it's a huge, huge move in the wrong direction. It really leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth, especially people who look at this and go, oh, that's a life-changing amount of money. That's 2 years' income. And over, the past 18 years, I supported you, and I put a total of $8,000 into this game, and that's what I was going to use for my kids' college fund. And now what you're telling me is, just like that money's gone. I can never get my hands on it because of where I live. But you're going to donate several times that amount to some charity. Great. So you just see several people's account value after they've been loyal to your company for years, and you're just giving it away. I think that is a horrible, horrible stance to take. I think that's a horrible thing to announce to the public. And if you were wanting an attaboy and a pat on the back, I think Mindark just took out the biggest grenade launcher that they could, and they just pointed it straight at their feet, and they just shot themselves straight in the foot. That is literally like me sitting here looking at this bank going, I would like all the money that's in that bank. That would be awesome. That would go so far in my life. Here, let me point at my feet and let me just shoot myself in the foot all day long. Let me shoot both feet. That would be a good idea. Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of praise for the social justice warrior stance. You're not going to get a lot of praise for doing the exact thing that horrifies people, that people lay awake at night hoping you never do to them simply because of where they live. And you're definitely not going to get any praise from me or anybody else for then turning around and saying, oh, we're not going to let this guy withdraw $100 even though he supported us for years, but we're going to give away 50 freaking grand to some charity. No, you pulled a Putin. You're literally pulling a Putin. What you're saying is that we're not going to allow any of these people to withdraw their money, but we're going to essentially take all that money and we're just going to give it away to some charity of our choice. You just became the dictator in that scenario. So the fact that they would even include that in this press release is absolutely beyond me. Again, they should have kept it simple, to the point. We just can't get the money there. We would love to, but we can't. Instead, they wanted the pat on the back. They wanted to take the moral high ground. And instead of doing that, they just scared everybody. Nobody's going to want to send them large amounts of money. It scared a large portion of the player base already. And then the ultimate slap in the face in trying to take the moral high ground against that evil, evil dictator. You just became the evil, evil dictator that took all that money out of all those accounts, and instead of giving it back to the rightful owners, you just decided to piss it away on some kind of charitable donation. Congratulations, Mindark is now the dictator. I cannot believe they would ever think that that was a good idea. I cannot believe they would ever think that that was a good thing to announce, or that was in any way going to make the players want to make more deposits. So that being said, guys, I'm going to leave it right there. That's why it's happened. That's why I think it is all how it is. And that is probably way more information than we needed. But I wanted to get it out there because I know it's something that concerns a lot of people. So at this point, can I really advise that people do the kind of thing that Mindark wants them to do and send them hundreds and thousands of dollars in all these big deposits? No, absolutely not. I've got friends that have hundreds of millions of dollars laying around that they would love to put into alternative investments. And I've never suggested Entropia Universe to them in case Mindark ever did something like that. Because what person in their right mind would actually put life-changing amounts of money into the hands of a company that does something like that? No one. So if you're looking for a place to put big money, I personally cannot say Entropia is the place for it. I cannot even say I would make the investment that I made if I had it to do over again after seeing that kind of an announcement. That scares the living crap out of me. It really does. Honestly, had I seen that announcement before I made my investment, I would not have made my investment. I would still be free to play. this channel wouldn't exist, the website wouldn't exist. I would have just not done it, because preserving money that you've made is always going to be first and foremost in my mind to making money. Lots of people go to the casino to try and gamble what they already have. That happens every day. It is much harder to preserve the money you've made and protect it than to grow it. So that being said, guys, if you're a $30, $40, $50 a month player and you do it as a hobby, that's fine. Anything above and beyond that, don't come to me for advice. Don't look at me for any kind of advice, because I don't got it for you anymore. So I hope that Mindark at least takes heed that the social justice warrior thing is not for them. They don't get a political vote. Say what you mean what you say. And then if you're going to try and say that we don't like what this dictator does, do not turn around at the end of your press release and be the dictator that seizes everybody's funds and gives it to charity. So I will leave that there. From everybody at EarnPED.com, sip, sip, smack, smack. Y'all know the rest. Thanks for all the support, guys. Hit that subscribe button. If you love the video, hit the like button, because we got haters out there hitting the dislike button. If you feel that there is some completely other reason that they are doing this that I missed, if you think they just hate people that live in Russia for some reason all of a sudden, let me know in the comments below. I don't read them, but hey, you guys get a kick out of it, and we'll be back with more content for you later this week. Also, Mayhem is coming up. Until then, head over to EarnPED.com, because when you earn, we earn, and that is by far the best way to support us. Thanks, and have a great one, Stevies.